This video will introduce you to citation and attribution, explaining the difference between them and which one you will need to do. Anytime you use an image or source data, you need to be able to cite or attribute it correctly. Citation is an academic requirement, much like when you're academically referencing a source. If you're using an image for academic purposes, you should cite it just like a text. Here, you will need to follow the University of Hull Harvard, footnotes, OSCOLA, APA, or Royal Society of Chemistry referencing guidelines, or whichever are relevant for your area of study. Attribution, however, is a legal requirement, and it may be that if you're using an image for a non-academic purpose that you can attribute it instead of citing it. Let's look at this in a bit more detail. Images are cited just like any other source. Here you can see I have a photograph, which is from Harrop. And so I've used my regular format style, which is Harvard, and put the brackets on the slide. Then, on my last slides, I will have a reference list and cite it following the guidelines. As you can see on the slide, this is what it looks like. Now for attribution, this is just a case of us crediting where an image came from and what license it's distributed under. You can see an attribution is much shorter than a full reference. This should be done for every single image that you provide if you have not cited it. So this really does depend on your use of the image. If the image has academic worth, such as a diagram, a scientific illustration, or something else that has academic merit, you should cite it. If your image is decorative or not illustrative, such as the example in the previous video of the man opening the jar to replicate the idea of strength, that image didn't have any academic merit, but I'd still want to say who took the picture and where I found it, and it's at this case that we could do an attribution. In this case, you just should say photo by, listed by who the author is, which should also be a hyperlink to where you found the image, and then afterwards in bracket put the terms of the license. Here is an example of a Creative Commons license. Creative Commons licenses will be explained further in a later video, but you can see there's a whole variety of different licenses available. These all have different restrictions, starting at the most liberal, which just requires you to attribute where you got that image and who it's by, all the way down to the most restrictive that won't allow derivations, will not allow commercial use, and still requires you to cite where it comes from. There's loads more information about these licenses on this page and later in the workshop. If you're required to use one of the University of Hull formats, you'll see the relevant guidance on our referencing pages. Simply visit the appropriate guideline, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's a dedicated section on citing figures, tables and data within your work. There's lots of examples within both of these sections, including how you would caption these diagrams. If you use footnotes, you'll see similar guidance, but we have two alternatives available. You will either be required to use footnotes or captions to provide citation information. If you're unsure which is appropriate for you, check with your supervisor.